Richard Rowe. It was the one that changed the Roblox logo. It was the one that hacked those Roblox accounts. It was the one that made the 1 billionth Roblox user disappear. So Richard Rowe made my sister Azura disappear? Yes, Asuna. That body they found wasn't your sister's. It was another person. It's a cover-up from the law enforcement and government. They know all too well what's going on. They just don't want the public to find out. Why not? Asuna asked with curiosity. This AI, it has finally completed the metaverse grid. At any moment now, it can stop civilization in its tracks. The public will freak out if they find out a killer AI has been kidnapping children and experimenting on them. What about Albert? Your friend is alright, he's not in a true coma. Those Arthro androids managed to inject a neuron soul transmitter. These are the modified versions of the needles used in the first mind heist experiments. He will be fine. Where are we heading now? Germany. There is some business I have to take care of, and after that, the Roblox headquarters. The thoughts of the kid who was victim to the Krampus AI rushed in. At the moment, all I could do was have nightmares about the AIs that were loose in the real world. If it weren't for the help of Jeremy, who I was able to contact through a wiki, I wouldn't be able to make an attempt at fixing all of this. The Krampus AI that kidnapped a boy in Germany filled me with guilt. Maybe it shouldn't have, since I never created these AIs. However, the guilt of letting this AI loose have still haunted me. Curiosity had killed the cat. We had finally arrived. Azura had accompanied me since the day after her sister's funeral. I knew how it felt to lose somebody close. She had begged me to come on my mission to stop Richard Rowe. Her eyes were filled with tears. I let her come, but on the condition that they leave me once we found her sister. I had to face Richard Rowe on my own. We took a cab to the asylum where a boy called Jurgen was locked away. I had read the newspaper. Jurgen didn't put his brother into a coma. The Krampus entity he described was similar to the failed Krampus Arthro David had made. Richard Rowe had given life to the Krampus Arthro to expand the experiment worldwide. I told Azura to wait for me outside while I would get Jurgen out of the asylum. The night of the city was perfect. I told one of the security officers that I came to see Jurgen. I said that I was a relative. They let me in. One of the security officers guided me to Jurgen's padded cell. The scared boy backed into the corner. Don't be afraid. I am the cure, I said. Let me introduce myself as Ricky Goldsworth. I don't even know who you are, Jurgen said back. You're right, I don't know you. But I do know that you've had a run-in with this entity. I pulled out my phone and showed Jurgen the Krampus Arthro. Jurgen started screaming. He kept saying that was the creature that he had seen that very night. Tell me what happened that night. I heard the footsteps. Those haunting footsteps of that creature. I hid my journal under the slats of the bed. When I looked over to see my brother, that thing was above him. Its claws were on his head. I heard a whirring sound coming from its arm as he was screaming his lungs out. It looked at me. Those glowing eyes. It let go of my brother. I grabbed him and tried to escape, but he was barely conscious. I tripped down the stairs and he fell with me. I swore that I used my own body to break his fall, but I still got blamed for what happened to him. I've started to believe that everything we experienced was some sort of hallucination, but I can't seem to believe that, which is why I'm here. Your brother isn't in a coma. You didn't cause that. It was Richard Rowe. I know I'll be breaking the law here, but I'm breaking you out. I don't want this guilt in my mind anymore. I looked at my phone and disabled the encryption that was able to help me hide from Richard Rowe all this time. All I had to do was wait until it came. A guard came in telling me that my time was up, and then the light flickered. The guard tried to radio in what was going on. No electronics were functioning. In the matter of minutes, it was able to find me. The lights went completely dark. There was some yelling and then gunfire. I knew it wasn't safe to stay in the padded cell. We were sitting ducks at the moment. I took Jurgen with me. This was the necessary distraction I needed, though I consequently made a bigger problem with what was to come next. The gunfire had stopped suddenly as Jurgen and I stopped in the hallway. Smoke was covering the entirety of the dark hallway, bodies of the guards laying across the ground. Then we heard it. Clomp, clomp, clomp. The sounds of the hooves tapping across the floor. The glowing eyes in the distance. The haunting laugh echoed across the hallway. Jurgen was shaking in fear. I told him that he would be fine and to stay behind me. I grabbed a USB drive from my coat pocket. The USB killer designed to kill Richard Rowe. I was finally able to test it out after a colleague of mine gave me information on how Richard Rowe operates.
Ricky Goldsworth. Richard Rowe has told me a lot about you. He's given me the order to bring your head to him.
You're a lot shorter than I expected, Krampus.
Oh, why is that, Jurgen? I see. You haven't paid your debt.
Krampus rushed towards me. I pushed Jurgen out of the way. I had Krampus where I wanted him. We were on the side to the exit. I told Jurgen to head for the door and he ran to the exit. Krampus was preparing to charge at me again. I had to find a way to put the USB drive in his chest. The only thing I could make out was his glowing eyes. I focused on them until they were gone. It took me by surprise.
Do you really underestimate my capabilities? We've been programmed to outsmart you. You will not stop the final judgment, Ricky Goldsworth.
I heard the clomping again. I couldn't move out of the way in time and felt two curved horns ram into me. I held on as hard as I could until I felt a shatter of glass on my back. I fell on the ground hard. I opened my eyes. We had made it outside. I could finally see this Krampus Arthro in detail under the streetlight. It stood over 6 feet tall, pulling a long stick from its red cloak. It came closer, raising its stick in the air ready to strike. I couldn't lift myself. I wasn't prepared to die and I refused to die by this Arthro's hand. I heard an engine sound, and I saw Krampus get run over by the cab that I had rode in. The car rammed Krampus into the asylum's wall. The window of the car rolled down. Hello there. It was Asuna. I grabbed the USB drive and walked towards the Krampus AI. It lost 2 of its legs in the process of getting rammed over.
Richard Rowe was right. You couldn't live without your own failure. And where did that bring you? Back to me. Ricky Goldsworth, you have a debt to pay.
Then I would like to make a deposit. I drove the USB drive into its chest. Anything you want to tell me before you're gone for good, Krampus?
You fool. You don't realize what you have gotten yourself into. Your own kind has betrayed you. The community. They have returned where they are due. Ricky Goldsworth, they will come after you. You are doomed to fail.
The eerie warning of Krampus had reminded me of Ashley's final warning. The community will be back where they are due. The community was a hacker group that swore to destroy Roblox many years ago. Contrary to popular belief, John Doe never intended to hack Roblox. YouTubers had mistakenly led others to believe that. It was the community's doing, but their reason to capture John Doe is unknown. However, Roblox does go down after a reported sighting of John Doe. John Doe himself doesn't have the capabilities to do that. Unless he has a Neo-Dominus. Seems as though the community had been working with Richard Rowe in the shadows. But why? Is it gone? Is it truly gone? Said Jurgen with a look of relief. My knees buckled all of a sudden, and I found myself grabbing my side. I looked at my hand. There was blood on it. We have to find you a doctor, Ricky, said Asuna. I declined. If the Krampus AI had been waiting for me this whole time to come, then other AIs will come soon. I need to talk to an old boss. We drove around the city. I know that David was somewhere in Germany, but at this point it seemed like a pointless goose chase. I stopped somewhere on the side of a road and thought for a minute. He had to be here, somewhere. Richard Rowe would not just send one single Arthro AI all the way here. If Richard also thought that David was here, it didn't make sense to send an AI all the way here unless Richard Rowe knew that the both of us would be here, that our human nature would lead us to rescue this boy. It's a trap. And then the glass shattered. I heard a gunshot sound and multiple heavy steps, and the car started to sway around. I instinctively turned the car on and hit the pedal, but the car wouldn't go. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw an Arthro animatronic, the Magma Fiend. It was holding down the car. We were getting surrounded by other Arthros, the Junkbot avatars. They pulled us out of the car. The Magma Fiend grabbed the car and flipped it. The Junkbots held us captive. There was no use in struggling at this point. A man appeared from the shadows holding a sniper over his shoulder. He wore a very clean suit and tie. He looked right at me. "Well, aren't you quite formal for someone who's trying to kill me?" I replied, but his expression remained unchanged. "Ricky Goldsworth. Nick sent me to make sure you don't do anything to Richard Rowe. Forgive me, but I have a job to do." He pulled out a revolver from his belt, cocked it and pointed it to my head. I refused to fall by his hand, but I couldn't do anything. I closed my eyes and got ready to accept my fate, until a car came roaring from the street and right towards us. The hitman jumped out of the way. The Junkbot AIs were distracted. I backflipped using their bodies and pushed them in front of the incoming car. The car ran them over with incredible speed. It drifted back over to where I was. The windows rolled down. David Baszucki smiling. "Do you need a lift?" he said. "David?" I responded. He got out of his car and pulled out some kind of blaster. He charged the blaster and shot it towards the Junkbot mob. When they were hit with a bolt of lightning, all of them at once disintegrated. Asuna and Jurgen were still held captive by the Junkbots, but the hitman had ordered them to go after us. David kept firing at the AIs. I ran past them as they disintegrated. The hitman kept aim and fired at me. I slid and tackled him to the ground. I was able to knock out the gun away from him, but his arsenal was more complex. He pulled out a karambit and swung it towards me. "Ricky, don't make this harder, you bastard." David yelled out my name and threw a tonfa in my way. I grabbed it and blocked his attack. "Listen, whoever you are, Richard Rowe will betray you. You nor whoever Nick is don't understand what's at stake here." I tried to reason with him, but money's one heck of a drug. "I don't care if the world is overrun by cartoonish robots. The money involved here is enough to buy my own private island." He stepped back. "Silas, this will be the last name you will learn. Now Magma Fiend, slaughter them." The Magma Fiend went after Asuna and Jurgen. I sprinted towards them and grabbed them before the Arthro got to them. I was able to spot the USB ports inside of the Arthro. I grabbed the USB killer and waited for an opening. Then it started to twitch out of control. David was blasting it with the gun. He yelled at me to do it. I opened the chest and inserted the USB drive. I let go and it fell on the ground. I shielded myself from the pieces of the Arthro that were flying from it. It let out one last roar and disintegrated. "How uncivilized," David Baszucki said. Before I could even mutter a word, David cut me off. "There's no time to chit-chat. We need to go to my lab. Richard Rowe has monoliths set around the world. I'll answer all your questions on the way." I grabbed him by the shirt collar and held him against his car. "David, after all this time, you don't realize all I had to go through. My wife, my daughter, I lost their trust. I've had to clean up your mistake. I understand what it's like to believe you've lost a child, but I need your help. I can't do this alone. You don't deserve my help, David. I don't, nor do I ask for your forgiveness. I just want you to understand. Please, Ricky, too much is at stake right now to argue. We have to go." He was right. Even if my wife and Penelope don't trust me anymore, I still want them to be safe. Fine. You lead and I follow.